Hey everybody, welcome back. Johnny B here with devslopes.com, and in the last video we registered a user. In this video we are going to log that user in and retrieve the authorization token so that we can use that when we need to post to lockdown routes like the add review and add trucks. So let's get going. We're going to be working mostly in our auth service. Alright, so let's create our login user function, and it's pretty similar to our register user function. So I'm going to copy our register user function, and then I'm going to come right here and paste it. And we're going to use some of it, but not all of it. So we're going to rename this to login user, and we are passing in an email, password, a context, and we will be passing in an interface, but we will be renaming this to a different type of interface, but we'll leave it for now. This can all stay the same because we're passing in the same type of JSON data, which is an email and a password. Okay, and now instead of a string request, we're actually going to need a JSON object request. So I'm going to try and keep all of this down here because most of this we're still going to use. And so I'm going to delete this part right here. And right here, I am going to say JSON object request. I'm going to call this login request equal to a new JSON object request. And the request.method is post. And we're going to be passing in our URL. And then we're going to be passing in null, because we're not passing in any other objects right there, at least. And then we're going to say new response listener. All right, and there we get our on response, which is good. And then right here, we will also be needing our new response error listener. And that, I believe, should do it. So we got a few more things to switch up. The auth failure error can be deleted since this is a JSON object request. And instead right here, instead of a string, let's put in a JSON object and save that. And then for our request queue, we are going to be passing in a login request. All right, awesome. And then here in our response, this is where we are going to extract our our auth token and our user information. All right, so let's go ahead and just do a quick log. So we can say volley, and we'll just post the response dot toString, not getString, dot toString. And so we're going to need to work with JSON here. So I'm going to say try and catch. And what is it that we are going to be doing? So if we come over here to our Postman and we look at an account login result, we see that we have a JSON object that has two properties. Okay, so back in Android, we are going to say JSON object, and I'm going to call it account. And I'm just going to set that equal to the response. And our auth token that we defined up here, where are you at? Our auth token that we defined up here, we are going to set that equal to auth token is equal to account dot get string, and that is token. If you think it might be useful to store the user email as well, you can go ahead and do that on your own. Create a private string of email, create a getter for it, and then you can use that elsewhere as you see fit. But we're just going to be working with the auth token for now. And then let's catch this JSON exception. So I'm going to say JSON exception and call it E, and we'll just log that. So we'll say log, capital log dot v, and we're going to say JSON exception plus e dot get localized message. Okay, and down here we don't need to listen for 409 because that was only part of the, that was only part of the registration route. So I'm going to remove that here. If our response.status code is 200, then we're good. So we'll say listener.success is true. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Let's come into our login activity and create our interface that we're going to be using. So right down here, I believe, where did we create our interface? Oh, right here. So this is going to be our login interface. And we'll put that right above our register interface. Actually, let's put it below. So we're going to say login interface is equal to a new login interface. And we'll save that and readjust our auth service login function. So instead of a register interface, we want a login interface. Save that. And then I think we're ready to use this function. So let's give that a go. So coming back here into our login activity, let's create a string for the auth key here. So I'm going to say private string auth key, or auth token, I should say. And then down here in attempt login, so when our register user is successful, that is taken care of right here. So this is where we want to call our login API call. So I'm going to say auth service dot get instance dot login user, and we're going to pass in email, password, get base context, and the login. And we need to actually, this is why we need to have it below, because right now it's not recognizing the login interface because it hasn't been created as far as it's concerned. So I'm going to move this down here and say, there we go. So there we go, login interface. All right, so now just to run through the chain of events again, when we log in, press the login button, we are going to call our register user auth service API call. We are going to pass in the email and the password, and we're going to try and register. If the registration is successful, then we are going to immediately go to our login user service. And what's wrong here? Email needs to be declared final. And we need to declare this final up here. So right here, say final string email. That's good. Okay, so now when the login user is successful, what do we want to have happen? First, let's just go ahead and run it and see if we have any errors. So I'm going to save it and then press rerun. So I'm going to say pick this and go to add review to login. I'm going to say John at testlogin.com 1 2 3 4 5 6, sign in, and we are getting an unexpected response code, which means that we are trying to register a user that already exists, which doesn't really make sense. So let's come look at our auth service login user. Oh, here we go. I forgot to change the URL from register to login. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. Run it one more time. All right, let's go to the add review to log in. I say John at testlogin2.com 1 2 3 4 5 6, sign in, and there we go. We got our volley showing us our user, our email, and then our token. And this is what we are after. This is what we're going to be needing to access our lockdown routes. So that is looking real good. So let's let's continue on our way. Let's come back to our login activity because once the login interface is successful, so here let's say if success, let's set auth token equal to auth service dot get instance dot get auth token. So now we have a copy of our auth token right here in our login activity. And what we're going to do is we are going to use shared preferences to save our auth token and to save a Boolean as well that says that we are logged in. So also up here, I'm going to say private Boolean is logged in. And I'm going to initialize it to false. Okay, I'm going to save that. And then, so when we're successful, when we have successfully logged in and registered, we're going to set our auth token, and then we're also going to say is logged in equal to true. Okay, and then we're going to use something called shared preferences, which, if you're familiar with iOS development, is kind of similar to user defaults. And so we are going to use shared preferences to save our auth token and our logged in state, so that when we click on the add reviews or add food truck buttons, we can do a check to see if we're actually logged in. If we're not logged in, then we will go to the login screen. If we are logged in, then we'll have access to this auth token that we can use in our API calls to our lockdown routes to add a truck and add a review. All right, so let's go ahead and work on saving those. So to use shared preferences, it's pretty easy. All you got to do is up here in our variables, we're going to declare a shared preferences, and we'll call it prefs. And then down here in onCreate somewhere, we can just say prefs is equal to preference manager dot get default shared preferences and pass in this. Okay, so we declare a variable prefs of type shared preferences. Then we set prefs equal to preference manager, and we are getting the default shared preferences and passing the context of this activity into that. And then when we are ready to save those, all we got to do right here is we can say prefs dot edit dot set, or to put, and we can put a Boolean, string, float, etc. Let's put our string for our auth token. So I'm going to say put string, and we're going to pass in a string reference and then the value that we want to save. So it's probably a good idea to have these set as constants so that we don't mess it up later. So I'm going to say public final static string, and this is going to be auth token, and this is auth token. And then we'll do the same for the is logged in. Is logged in. All right, save that. Come back to our login activity. And we're going to say constants dot auth token, and then we are going to pass in auth token, and then for our is logged in, we're going to say prefs dot edit dot put, and this is a Boolean, so we're going to say constants dot is logged in, and we're going to pass in true. All right, so now we have our auth token and our logged in status saved that we can access throughout our application. But one thing I forgot here, we need to say dot apply, and so that's actually doing the saving dot apply. All right, and then once we do all that, we're finished with this activity, so we can just say finish, and that just closes down the activity and returns you to the previous activity. So let's give this a try, and just to be sure this is working, let's go to our food truck. Let's see, where you at? Food truck detail activity. So we don't actually want to load the login. What we want to load is the add review. So we're going to say load add review, and then we are going to say if, well, first we have to implement shared preferences in this file as well. Got to do it in each of them. So up here I'm going to say shared preferences prefs, and then in on create I'm going to say prefs is equal to preference manager dot get default shared preferences, and pass in this, and you're good to go. And then down here this is going to be load add review. So to retrieve an item from your shared preferences, it's pretty easy. All you got to do is say prefs dot get, and you can get a boolean, get a string, and so the string, the first parameter, is the reference or the key that we created, and those we created in constant, which is auth token and is logged in. The second is the value to put if there is nothing to be found. Okay, so if I write get boolean and I say constants dot is logged in, and then I say false, that's not saying get the boolean is logged in and make it false. That's saying get the boolean is logged in if there is one. If there's not one, then set it to false. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to say if prefs.getBoolean constants.is logged in is true, then what are we going to do? We are going to proceed to our add reviews activity, which doesn't exist yet. So let's do that right now. I'm going to right click on activities and say new activity, empty activity, and this is going to be add review activity. Okay, I'm going to finish, and we have that added now. And this is a little bit of a mess here, isn't it? You know what? I'm just going to delete this whole thing. So public void load add review. So what are we going to do? We want to know if our prefs dot get boolean constants dot is logged in. If it exists and it's true, then we're going to continue. If it doesn't exist, then we're going to set it equal to false. And then we say intent is equal to new intent, and we have our one that we are coming from, food truck detail activity dot this. Then we pass in our destination activity, which is add review activity dot class. Then we just say start activity intent. So that's if we are logged in. If we are not logged in, else, then we are going to start an activity, or start an intent, but instead of going to the add review, we are headed to the login activity. All right, hope that makes sense. And then we'll go ahead and put our toast back in here, which was toast dot make text, and we're going to say get base context. I'm going to say please log in to leave a review. Then we're going to say toast dot length short, and then we're going to say dot show. All right, so let's give this a try. If we are logged in, we're going to check our shared preferences, and if we are logged in, then we continue on to the add review activity. If we are not logged in, then we go to the login activity, where we will create an account or login. So I'm going to save that and rerun. All right, so let's click on here, go to add review. So we're going to log in. I'm going to say john@johnnyb.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sign in, and we are finished. And we should have saved our logged in status. So if I click on add review again, it should take us to the add review activity, which it does. All right, so that is very cool. We have created our login activity, and we've successfully registered and logged in our users. We are saving our logged in status as well as our auth tokens, which we'll be using in the next videos to add reviews and add food trucks. So we've done a lot here, and let's go ahead and just run through one more time. If you got it, go ahead and you can skip to the next video right now. I'm just going to run through one more time our auth service file here. So reviewing in Postman, when we register a user, we are posting to this URL, to this route. In the body, we are passing an email and a password. Okay, so in Android, that's what this function is doing. We are registering a user, we are passing an email and a password. We are passing JSON in the body of our post request. So we have created this JSON object that contains the email and password. Then we are doing a volley request. In this case, it's a string request because we are just retrieving a string response from the API. We then do a check to see if we have already logged in with a 409. And yeah, if we register successfully, then we continue on to our login user. And in Postman, what that looks like is passing a email and password in the body as well, and retrieving a user information as well as our token. Okay. And then, so back in Android, what that looks like is we have our JSON object. We have our JSON object request, in which we receive a response, which is a JSON object. We retrieve our authorization token from the JSON object, and yeah, then we just do a couple more checks. This this part right here, the get body content and the get body, this is how we pass our JSON body that we created up here as part of our post request in the body of the post request. All right, so that does it for this video. We are successfully saving and registering our login information, and it's looking real good, guys. And so in the next one, we're going to start working with our authorization tokens in the headers of our post requests. So that'll be exciting. All right, so I will see you then.